This is a crazy story. The parents of a 6-year-old Canadian boy are angry because he's been put on the no-fly list.
He's the 6-year-old who was trying to fly with his dad to the NHL Winter Classic.
More than a dozen parents now say they believe the Canadian government has mistakenly flagged their children as travel threats.
I had no idea that that tweet would generate the traffic it has in the media.
Adam, who's been deemed a high-profile traveler, may just be the one to influence Ottawa to make changes.
Lights will guide you home, and I will try to fix you.
Welcome, Sulemaan and Khadija.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
This really is the first time that we're sitting in an auditorium in front of 300 people talking. So one of the epic experiences this entire situation has introduced in our lives, something that never would have happened before, and we never would have anticipated this 3 years ago. Our son, sorry, I skipped too far in the slideshow. There he is, little son. He was a few days old at that time. His name is Adam, and when he was 6 weeks old, he was flagged as a designated high-profile passenger when we tried to fly from Toronto to Halifax to visit my parents. And it was a domestic flight. He had to be visually identified, and he had to be security cleared for check-in. And it continued to happen each time we flew. So the first time we tried to advocate on this issue was when he was 2 years old. We contacted some of our elected representatives, federal elected representatives. We contacted the airlines, ministers of transportation and public safety, and we really got nowhere. Their advice to us was to get an airplane card, and the other tip they gave us was to yeah, you know, it's an airline loyalty program, and my response was it's not much different than an Optimum card, which is a shopper's, loyalty program. And show up to the airport a few hours earlier so that you've given yourself enough time to have your toddler security cleared. They also blamed the United States, check if he's on the US-based list. That wasn't the case. So at the time, we really didn't get anywhere, and we kind of let it slide because we had 3 small children, and we were kind of exhausted, so we kind of let it slide. But then, when he was 6 years old, so this is December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2015, he was traveling to Boston from Halifax via Toronto. So on the Halifax to Toronto leg, my husband actually managed to get a screenshot of the check-in agent's screen. And I'll let him take it from here.
So it was December 31st, and we're trying to get to the game. He's been a good boy all year. Take him to a hockey game. And when the agent had to make the phone call, I turned her screen and took a photo of it. And I tweeted it out. And I thought, who would look at Twitter at 6 o'clock in the morning on December 31st? Turns out a lot of people do. And we landed in Toronto, and I turned on my phone, and it's all hell's breaking loose. And people are texting saying, check Twitter. So then I'm like, oh boy. And now reporters are contacting us. And we're not media professionals or savvy. We don't have experience in public relations. We're just regular parents like you, family like you. We're no different. And now people are going crazy. So then the first media call comes in, so I did what any brave person would do. I said, honey, go ahead and take care of this. Why lie? and this is coming from someone whose dad worked at the CBC for 30 years, so I really am a coward. And so then, But Jamie Sturgeon from Global National did the right thing. He took the piece, but he didn't make it a divisive issue. He said, this is a father taking his son to a hockey game. You can't get much more Canadian than that. You know, there are Habs fans, now Leafs fans are saying, you deserve to be on the list because it's worth it. Oh, okay, you're clapping now, come on. So we're just like you. We had no media training. Our family's private, but our parents brought us up to speak up when the wrong thing's happening. And it's scary as hell. And if you're an entrepreneur, it's scary as hell to take risks. In fact, one person here tonight actually told me, and was like, I don't know if I want to do this because this will have blowback on our company. And they're like, this is on you now. It's no longer just about you. This is about a lot of other families out there. And now we're trying to travel with our family, and we're not only on the national news, it's international news. Like, we have friends who are Spanish in Argentina, and they're like, you're on Yahoo on the homepage down here. So, you know, that's where it went to. And the question is, when you end up in the eye of the storm, what are you going to do?
So for a while there, we were the only ones who were kind of in the spotlight until a few days later when this friend of ours, Zamir, well, now friend of ours, Zamir Khan and his wife Heather, came forward to the Globe and Mail to say that their then 16-month-old son was also in the same predicament, and they had the same experiences with him. So them joining our sort of advocacy efforts was really the catalyst that sparked this entire movement that has resulted in this, essentially. I mean, and that's when No Fly List Kids was born. So together, we actually formed this group. I mean, it's not a registered group or anything. It's just like a group of parents with children who are in the same predicament. And before very long, we were contacted by people from all sorts of backgrounds, like professionals, civil liberties organizations, speaking coaches, lawyers, all who were interested in this file and really wanted to help, because some of these people had been advocating on this issue for essentially over 10 years. The No-Fly List was created and introduced in 2007 at the request of the United States. And it had, apparently, we learned, been very flawed in the way it was created. So they had been advocating for fixes to the system for a decade, and they hadn't gotten anywhere until Adam, essentially, was supposedly too scary to fly. So we had a lot of people with different skill sets, and we brought them together, and we realized it was a systemic issue with so many, hundreds of children who had come forward to us within a matter of a few months. And we developed a strategy for how to deal with this. By the time a year had gone by, we were told by the government that they would fix the list. We had been given promises along the way. And the Aeroplan thing just kept popping up over and over and over again. So one of our parents in our group actually applied for an Aeroplan card under the name of our Minister of Transportation, Mark Garneau. So to prove that it's really not a foolproof system. I mean, I could get an Aeroplan card under Bugs Bunny and it would come to my, I would receive it. So, it was just different sort of strategies that we tried, different ideas on how to contact people, who to contact, what, social media, tactics to use. And, we formed this collective that came together to essentially move this issue forward.
So it turns out to eliminate false positives, the way the Canadian system was built was solely on name. So for David Smith, and that actually is a name on the list, because this wasn't just a Muslim or Arab issue, this impacted everybody. So if one person's charter rights as a Canadian are violated, all of our rights are violated. And so it was based only on name, not date of birth, social security number, passport number, unique identifiers that would separate one person from another. So we realized as we kept pressing this group of families, and that's who we are two of over 200 families now that work together. We are very much a collective. And could we actually, crazy enough, change federal policy? Is that actually possible? Some of you may be asking yourselves, can I actually affect change? I believe you can. And we took all these pieces together, So the U.S. has had an operating redress system. So false positive, you're not that bad person, someone else is. The United States has an operating redress system for 10 years. So we said, shouldn't Canada have one? Might be a good idea. And we pushed forward for it. Now the challenge was we didn't want money. We weren't making this political. We just wanted it fixed. And then we found out that the cost to fix this was $81 million. That's not our figure. That's the figure the government gave us. So in 2017, we anxiously anticipated the release of the federal budget after over a year and a bit working very hard. This is like a startup. It's full-time. You are all in because it's our child. What would you do if it was your child? How hard would you fight? So we thought we were successful. I remember getting the email, and I was in Winnipeg on business, and I thought, oh my God, did you get it? There's a line item, it looks like, and it's even more. It's 120, so hey, we even got space from the 81 million. Nope. We found out that it was not for us. And I got to tell you that that hurt. I cried that night. But to Jim's point, when you get punched in the gut, what are you going to do? Are you going to quit? Do you stop? But all our advisors and people said, keep going. Sorry.
You're doing fine.
But it's because of our son. Moving forward, so what do you do now? You get punched in the gut. Do you stop? So we kept going. So we decided we're going to change our tactics a little bit for the 2018 budget. So we decided we were going to get people to write letters, members of parliament. How easy is that going to be? Because there's only 330 of them. But we decided we're going to get 25 letters from members of parliament. We ended up getting 230. We didn't stop. All 5 parties, all leaders, we went, parents, grandparents, family, friends. We used LinkedIn to find out who was connected to an MP, because if we couldn't get them directly, we'd find out who helped fundraise for them. The tools exist out there. We did not stop. We would ask people, who do you know? We kept going, and parents kept going. You know, we took a break at the beginning, and we kept going. And so in a year's time, we got 230 letters, and that's where we pushed forward.
So at the same time, we were invited to testify at a couple of committees on legislation. So the Finance Committee and the National Public Safety and National Security Committees. I mean, these invitations came about as a result of our continued communication with all the MPs regarding the letters. So the letters he's talking about are actually letters that MPs themselves wrote to the Minister of Finance and Public Safety in support of our position. So it spoke volumes that they were receiving letters in support from their colleagues, not from, you know, just regular folks, like their constituents. There's a lot of personal sacrifice involved in this when we did this. I mean, personal, financial, emotional, and our group of families have been at this for 3 years. So it's a long time. You know, we had to sort of cycle in, cycle out. We had a big group, so at times some of us would get really worn out, other people would cycle in, and we had people who would slow us down, speed us up when necessary. And that was really helpful to have that sort of cohesive group of people with different skills working on this. We also got help from unexpected places, and someone you're going to hear from today. So one of a really epic side effect is that we get to hang out with him, which is really awesome. So yeah, I'll let you continue.
So we, by being patient, taking the high road, in today's world there's a lot of division. But we diligently took that road. We didn't get divisive. We didn't get nasty. And I think that that made a significant impact. Then one day, this brilliant woman, Dawn Matthews, posted this on the Facebook page. And so,
Time, dear.
Huh? Oh,
Time.
sorry. So, thank you. Long story short, they're a military family. They both served in the armed forces. Their 6-year-old boy, David Matthews, was on the list. And so they got involved. And Dawn was brilliant. She was creative. Campaign she created was, don't name your child this. So we took all the names and posted them out and then tweeted them at, you know, doctors and obstetricians and hospitals and family groups. Then we had a paper airplane campaign where there was a one-pager that was created by students, And that was mailed out to all the MPs, and they had the phone. Oh, okay. But we made sure that we stayed on topic on this is on charter rights, and we continued. So, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, the Paper Airplanes was a really fun campaign. We also had like a cartoonist who had done this cartoon because we found out that there was actually one of the Canadian cartoonists who was on the no-fly list. So that was really, you know, we have this actually framed in our house right now. Yeah. So, I mean, that $81.4 million caused a lot of controversy, to be honest with you. And, you know, people were saying, for 200 kids, well, is it even worth it? But then we had a couple of University of Western Ontario students who did a little bit of research and discovered that there could be up to 100,000 Canadians who are impacted by this list, because the list is, you know, our son and these other kids are false name matches to somebody who's actually on the list. So there's no mechanism to distinguish between people with the same name. So once this $100,000 figure became public, it made, you know, the amount of money made more sense. Then fast forward to February of this year, 2018 budget day, we were invited to actually the budget lockup on Parliament Hill, which again, we walked into the room. There are all these like major organizations, representatives, you know, multi-million-dollar funded organizations, and us, like really nobodies from like nowhere, you know, sitting in this room with all of these people, and it took us less than a minute to find our item on page 282. And it was amazing, you know, they had included the funding at this time. So our efforts have worked.
So if we could take away 3 quick points for you, it would be one is relentless consistency. When you hit the wall, you got to keep going. You have to stay consistent, keep taking the high road. Patience and sacrifice. What are you prepared to do? How patient are you prepared to be? And then the other piece I would say, seek help and then let go. If you're a control freak and you want things run a certain way, that doesn't always work. Bring other people on board with new ideas and perspectives. This was all driven by passion, doing the right thing, and that was driven because of our children, our child and the other children. Just some quick metrics. Social media had an impact of about 54 million impressions, but globally, news media coverage was almost 15 billion.
So this is Adam now. He's 9 years old. We're not done yet. The list hasn't, I mean, the problem hasn't been fixed yet. The legislation is sitting with the Senate, and we're hoping that they will pass it before the next election is called, because if it doesn't get passed before the next election is called, then it basically gets stalled, and we pretty much have to start from scratch. So, you know, this entire experience continues to be surprising for us. You know, we're your neighbors, our kids go to your schools, we'll pass you in the grocery store. I mean, if we can do something like this, I believe that anybody in the room can accomplish something like this. And it was a pleasure talking to you today.